I'm Susan Bailey, the museum's Director of Education, and I appreciate your patience as we're starting late tonight. As I mentioned, one of our speakers who's coming in from Tulsa got caught in some traffic, imagine that, in Oklahoma City, but she's almost here. So we're going to kind of reverse our order tonight, But FREDTalks is, this is our second year of this program, and the format is inspired by the informality of programs such as TED Talks, and also Pecha Kucha, which involves, speakers only having 20 seconds for each image. We give our speakers a little bit longer than that. So, but it's this idea of having broad topics about creativity, and it kind of originated with our faculty advisory board, who thought up some of our original topics. But of course, tonight's topic is about self-identity and the selfie. And so we're hoping that we'll get some good dialogue going about what is it that selfies tell us about contemporary culture, about self-esteem, about issues of identity. So we have two live speakers tonight. Eventually, I should say, we will have two live speakers. Krystle Brewer, who's still on her way from Tulsa, and Kathryn Moeller, who's also from Tulsa. And Delta Murphy will be joining us via video tonight from LA. But let me go ahead and introduce our speakers just to give you an idea of who we'll be talking to tonight. We're going to start off with Delta Murphy tonight, even though she's not actually physically with us. Delta is a recent OU grad, you can see her here. We're going to play her video in just a second. But she's a recent OU grad. She just finished up in May in visual communications. And while she was at OU, she worked for the OU Center for Teaching Excellence, OU College of Law, and the Weisenhofer School of Musical Theater. Currently, she's working in LA as a graphic designer for RTKL, a global architecture planning and design firm. And because of some work conflicts, because of course in LA it's 2 hours earlier, she had some client conflicts today that she couldn't miss. So instead of doing a live video chat like we had originally planned with Delta, she, like late last night, went ahead and videotaped her presentation to share with us today. I just want to mention that our next Fred Talk will be in October, and it will be about creativity in the subconscious. So look for information about that. It'll be Thursday, October 30th, right before Halloween at 5:30. So, and I will mention also that we invite you tonight, in the spirit of the theme of tonight's talk, to following the program. We will have some refreshments right behind us here in the museum classroom. You might go in and enjoy a little bit of refreshment. But then also we invite you to go around the museum and take your own selfie and post it on social media with the hashtag FREDTalks. So we encourage you to do that, and we'll go ahead and show you, I think. We have a little staff fun today. This is our namesake at the museum, Fred Jones Jr. This is a bust of him that's here in the museum. And so I took this selfie. It's a little harder to take a selfie of a sculpture than one might think, I found, as I was trying to pretend that my arm was an extension of his arm here. But we invite you you can see that the staff kind of got into the spirit. Here's mine with the Mustang, our Director of Communications with our temporary exhibition, and our Curator of Academic Programs with a portrait by Walt Kuhn. So anyway, we invite you to go around afterwards and find a work of art that speaks to you and take your own selfie and post that if you would like. Okay. And as we, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and play this video of Delta Murphy speaking about her project, which she did last year as a school project here at OU. And so she's going to describe all that. We're also going to be passing out just some visuals of things that she's talking about in her presentation. So,
hi there, my name is Delta Murphy. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with the time difference with me being in California and you guys in Oklahoma. I would still be at work and we've got tons of deadlines, so I'm sending out a little video thing. So I'm not sure how much they told you about me or if I'm supposed to do the introduction, so I'll do like a mini one. Like I said, my name's Delta Murphy. I just graduated this past school year. I was a senior in Viscom. And for a class for a class Tom held, the new professor, he gave us this really in-depth paper that we had to read, and then we all had to choose like a sentence or a paragraph or a phrase from it, and then let that inspire a project. So I have the phrase. It says, "Persuasion is mere illusion, the ground of the judgment, though it lies solely in the subject being regarded as objective." So super wordy, couldn't even read it that well. But the way I interpreted that was we all kind of judge at face value of things without really knowing maybe the full story. And so then that kind of spun into, maybe how we judge each other based off of our appearance or what we're doing at that moment or whatever. Maybe we don't know the full story. So I got to thinking, I was, on social media and everyone's posting these selfies and my little sister starts, to hold her camera up to take a selfie. And I was like, "Grace, what are you doing? Like, don't take a selfie, don't post that." And she's like, "Why?" And then I got to thinking, I was like, wait, because I was thinking if she posts a selfie, everyone's going to maybe judge her for that. And then I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. And so that kind of gave me this idea of, I don't know what everyone else does, but normally before this project, I would be on Instagram going through the feed and being like, "Oh my gosh, she's posting a selfie, he's posting a selfie." And I was judging and I had no ground to do that. And it reminded me of that quote that I read. So I took a selfie and then I posted, I wrote really quick, "Please send me your selfie" or something. And I took a photo of that and I posted that on Instagram and I said, "If you have selfies, please send it to me. I'm doing this project." And I was kind of thinking, I'll get selfies from friends and families, which I did. And that was great and they were funny. But the thing that I wasn't expecting was I got selfies from all of these random people. I also posted that same photo that I posted on Instagram. I posted that, I printed it out and I posted it around Campus Corner. I posted it at Grey Owl Coffee. And that was where I got tons of strangers sending me selfies. I made an email address. I think it was Selfies for Delta. And that's where so people were Instagramming me, they were tagging me in their selfies, and they were emailing me their selfies to the email account I made. And along with their selfie, I asked them to send something about themselves that you wouldn't know necessarily looking at them. And I got some really interesting things. Some were really deep and then some were really funny. This one kid said that he drove from Oklahoma to San Antonio just to eat at his favorite breakfast restaurant one night. So something like that, or something about someone's heritage or, their dreams for what they want to do for college, or even how their parents picked their name. This one guy said, and he some of these photos too were super smiley, or they were really goofy. And so this one guy, he said this really goofy face, and he said something about how his parents couldn't agree on his name. And so his dad or his mom, it's been a while, I can't remember all the details. His dad or his mom said, "Okay, well, if you choose my name, I'll get you a new car." And so he's done. So I thought that was interesting. So I got all of this information, and then I needed to solve the problem for design purposes. So I made this little, I named the card or the game, oh, it's backwards, sorry. I named the game Face Value. And I made a little logo for it, a face, and then a little communication bubble, saying kind of the value in each person is, their stories, or, the stories that they have about themselves, not necessarily the type of selfie they're taking or whatever, or what they look like. And so then what I did again, I'm not sure what they're showing you, so I'm just going to show you this. Then I got like all the selfies, and I printed them on these little cards, and I got selfies of like, this is my aunt, so that's someone I know. Then I got like selfies of like your typical high school kid, some people in the art school. This is the kid that I was telling about who drove all the way to San Antonio. But yeah, and then I'm trying to see, somewhere in here I have like a little girl. Okay, funny. This is the kid whose parents chose his name off of one of his parents getting a car. But yeah, so I got all of these selfies, and I got these quotes. And so I printed the selfies out on square cards, and then on the back, I put the face logo, because that's the face, and I put a number. And then next to those cards, I designed full cards with a number and then the fact about the person. So like this one, it says, I feel and look too old for selfies. So if you were looking at all these cards, you might see like there's 2 older people in here, and so that kind of gives it a clue. And then it's kind of a game. So then it's kind of like a guessing game. So you'd make your guess, and if you were right, you would then take this and you would kind of slot it into these little holes. And then that would be your match. Granted, this is not the right card, but if it was, that's how it would work. And so like some of my friends and I, we kind of came up with all these different rules that you could play. Like it could be like a speed game, like you're trying to like match them really quick, or you could play it by yourself, kind of like solitaire. So it's more of just kind of like a comment, like all of us kind of guessing on each other and things like that. It is kind of a game. You really don't know until maybe you just go and talk to that person. But the thing that I thought was really awesome, and my favorite part that I'll always remember about this project, is that all of these people, like, I don't know, I, like, with my little sister went to go take a selfie, and I was like, don't do that, like, you might get judged. All of these people had no idea who I was. I didn't even say what I was doing with the project because I didn't even know at that time what I would be doing with these photos. But they were just so open and willing to just send their selfies. So I think that's kind of great. I don't know, like some people might say about our generation that that's kind of like very self-consumed or conceited. But I think it's kind of great. I think it's us trusting others and just to put our photo out there. And when I was doing like a little bit of research before I did this project, I saw somewhere on the internet, so who knows how true it is, but I thought it was interesting and it stuck with me. I saw that like young girls who are posting selfies are starting like to have more self-esteem. Like it raises their self-esteem because all of those people are going to go in there and like it and stuff. And even though they probably took like 13 other photos, they still took a photo that they think is pretty of themselves and they're posting it out there. So even from that standpoint, with me having like a little sister in high school, I think that's kind of cool. And so I'm like, okay, post a selfie, but maybe don't do it like every day, maybe like once a week or something. But you know, if it raises your self-esteem, honestly, go for it. And then, you know, maybe instead of just posting like a bunch of emojis and like kissy faces, maybe do something like this project. Post something really interesting about yourself that maybe others might not know just from your photo, and they can learn a little bit more about you. So I wish I could be there to answer any of you guys' questions or join you in a conversation, but I can't. I hope, you know, you guys are enjoying this and you're learning some interesting things about selfies. I wish I could learn because I don't know much. I just know what I did for my project. But yeah, if you're a student and you're at OU, go OU, Boomer Sooner, stick in there, keep it doing it. You're eventually going to get your dream job. I just did. And if you're doing student projects, don't be bashful or put yourself down if you have an idea where you need the public, because what I saw from this project is everyone's willing to help. So just do it and ask, and have a backup plan. I had a backup plan in case I didn't get enough selfies. I had a backup project, but I didn't need to use it. So anyways, bye everyone. Thank you.
Hopefully that has given me an idea of Delta's project, which was, I think, a real interesting student project that she completed last year. And I did want to just share with you. I know Delta wanted to be available if you have any questions. She said to please feel free to email her, and this is her email address, dmurphy@rtkl.com. So if you would like to follow up with any questions with Delta, we encourage you to do that. Well, I want to go ahead and introduce our two live speakers who are here with us today. Kathryn Moeller and Krystle Brewer have both driven in from Tulsa, so thanks to them. I had no idea that they were not local when I invited them, so I really appreciate their willingness to make the journey here tonight to talk about their project. They both recently completed their MA degrees in art history from Oklahoma State University. They worked as curatorial assistants for the inaugural exhibit at the OSU Museum entitled Sharing a Journey. Prior to their graduate work, Kathryn taught art history at the high school level and studied contemporary art at Sotheby's Institute of Art in London. Currently, Kathryn is a lecturer in art history at OSU. Krystle is an artist and has worked and interned for numerous nonprofit organizations, including OVAC, Oklahomans for the Arts, and the Cultural Development Corporation. Krystle recently became the Associate Director at 108 Contemporary in Tulsa. Together, they have curated several exhibitions in addition to Selfie, an exhibition on identity, which took place at Mainside Gallery in downtown Norman, about which they will speak tonight. So please join me in welcoming Kathryn and Krystle.
And after we found out that Selfie was the 2013 Word of the Year, we were like, okay, well, now we have to do something with this because this is too relevant. But we really wanted to kind of broaden the term in some sense. We didn't want to do an exhibition of selfies. We wanted to really consider the word within kind of a broader art historical context, because artists have been making self-portraiture since at least the Renaissance, and self-portraiture is very much a sort of the bread and butter of an artist, a painter's practice and training. And so we wanted to consider this as maybe sort of just a new development kind of within that context. And we wanted to really look and see how fluid an artist's interpretation of self can really be. So we were hoping that we would get kind of variety of takes on this, rather than just the straightforward selfie.
And that's kind of where you have the subtitle too of an exhibition of identity. So we were hoping that people would make that connection about selfies, but it was really about using the selfie to talk about identity and that fluidity and construction of it. So we did a call for artists with a little bit of our statement and explanation of kind of what we were looking for. But whenever you do a call to artists, you have no idea what you're going to get. So we had some very humorous ones, as well as some that were very literal. And so we looked at all the pieces, and we didn't just choose them based on the best quality, although that was a big part of it too, but how they really spoke to each other. And so as we were laying the items out in the space, we were really focused on the conversations that they were having together amongst the words.
Yeah, so as you can see from our install, this isn't the entire gallery, but this is a good portion of it. So we sort of conceptually sort of started thinking it kind of down on this end, this being sort of a beginning point close to the door. And then we tried to pair the works next to others that we thought either talked about, the two of them sort of talked about either the similar types of concepts or similar, they had similar aesthetic qualities, or in some cases kind of opposites. So that as you moved through it, you really had a sense of the variety at which, the variety of ways in which people were kind of coming at this. So, for example, we had an artist who did photographs on silver paper and gold paper. And then we paired that next to an artist whose work was multimedia, but she used gold leaf. And we found that those were sort of interesting because they both had sort of reflective properties. And then we paired that across a work that was primarily made out of glass, the one in the center. And then on down there was a work that actually included a mirror. And so we found, so none of these artists are making work and are aware of what is going to be shown next to it or alongside of it. And we found this really interesting kind of look at sort of mirrored properties and the way that we sort of look into ourselves and sort of look at ourselves. And one of them, you drive because I'll mess it up. Okay. One of the pairings that we found particularly sort of interesting were these two works by Carrie Azzarello and the sculptural piece that's by Anna Rutherford. And so Carrie does photography with text, and then she pairs that with images, radiography images. And so she has this really interesting, we particularly like the top piece that says trust your gut, because there's this interior shot of self, and we use that phrase trust your gut, like there's just this thing inside of you, there's this other person, or there's this thing you're just supposed to trust. Whether you realize it or not. And we paired that against Anna Rutherford's, because Anna is an artist who has struggled with an autoimmune condition, and she did this beautiful bronze hand, and I know it's sort of hard to see from the image, but so the hand is laid out this way, but the top layer is sort of mutilated and distorted and almost looks like it's sort of writhing in pain. The underside of the arm is sort of normal looking, but you'd never see that unless you stood next to the piece and looked down into a mirror. And also on top of that mirror is a vial of medicine and a syringe. And so we found this sort of interesting idea of sort of, again, interior views and exterior views. Autoimmune diseases, typically you look like you're fine, but your body is sort of turned against itself. It's attacking itself. And we found that an interesting concept to pair against Carrie Azzarello and this idea of trusting yourself. Whereas you can trust your body, and what happens when you cannot trust your body. So they had sort of this interesting idea of your innate self and what happens in both cases when you feel in control and out of control. And so that was an interesting pairing that we had.
Which I think is kind of a good point to make a connection to the previous speaker, where she was talking about the words that would describe the inside, right? The inside of like our personality, who we actually are, versus the image of the self. So it's interesting too that these artists one of them is literally showing photographs of the inside of the body, and the other one is sculpting what it feels like on the inside. So it seems like there is kind of a struggle between the selfie showing the outside and also trying to show the inside. So in addition to artists that had this kind of approach to the concept of selfie, we had one artist, Ashley Swordbuster, who took it pretty literally, and she gave us, this whole collection of selfies, and they're printed out. So these are from Instagram. She made these for the show. They're not actually of her Instagram, but they have like the filters and stuff on them that you would see. And what's significant about her approach is that she was being kind of ironic about it, or posting things that you would not expect. So normally when we take selfies, we're wanting to show ourselves as like the best possible self, kind of this idealized version of yourself, or how you want to portray yourself to the public, all over the world on the internet. And so what she did is she captured moments that you would not post. So we have like a pile of laundry, we have a counter that's covered in her kitchen, her socks, we have when a branch fell on her car. It was kind of this real life. We have one here where you can see the blemishes on her face, and she has this skin issue where her face will, where it looks like acne. And all of these different things that are not how she wants the world to see her. And so by putting those images in the public, she's really pointing back to that fact of how we are constructing this identity in kind of the virtual world. And then we have artists that took a very abstracted approach to it. I can't tell you that I have this piece figured out even now, but that's okay. This is Adam Landman. This is the artist of this piece, and the title of the piece is Loaded. And he is standing where you would view the work, although you can tell that to read the three words, love, hope, and joy, you have to stand on the outside of the piece. At the top of each of these recycled windows is a mechanism with a chain, and what happens is when you pull that, a lever goes and the glass breaks in your face. So, and they're different. One has a large rock, one's a brick, one's a hammer, and we had issues with the gallery too of what if someone accidentally sets this off. And so we had to have them go in and put little pins so it wouldn't actually go. And then sure enough, on First Friday, we had multiple people that had pulled it.
Your dad pulled it.
My dad. Tell you a little about my upbringing. So kind of what this piece is about is that it's interesting where to read these concepts of like how you want to construct your life, you want it to be filled with these things, right? Hope, love, joy. But to use the piece, to interact with it, you're destroying those. So I want to see what else I want to say about it. And then we had people that actually did want to pull it to see what happened. And so we removed the pins, and they actually did pull the levers and the glass broken on themselves. So kind of what his work speaks about is the fragility of these concepts, and but also having that same reflective quality and looking into the self.
Yeah. So we kind of came away from the exhibition with sort of a new appreciation of the selfie phenomenon, because the artists were all they were all very interested in how their work, again, sort of fit within this context, and how the selfie is maybe the most current sort of reiteration of our fascination with self. And we sort of came away with this knowledge that you might laugh at selfies, you might look at it and be like, oh, yep, one more duck face, or things like that. But at this point, it seemed to be to us that the actual selfies they're such a critical part of our communication and the way we communicate online, the way we communicate in sort of the social network. And so at this point, we sort of, after this whole thing, we kind of realized, the selfie phenomenon, maybe it'll be a trend and it'll die out, but even so, it's a critical part of our communication that can't quite be dismissed as just a vanity, an element of vanity. So, yeah, and that artists will continue to look at self. They'll continue to. We didn't show images, but we had some that were very straight self-portraits. They were very sort of traditional self-portraits, and we definitely wanted to include those because, like we said, we've always felt that those were that's where Selfie fits in. It's just a recent sort of incarnation in some ways. If you look at self-portraits throughout history, people like Rembrandt, no two Rembrandts look alike because he played with his image. Cindy Sherman for sure plays with her image, so in some ways, Selfie cannot be deemed as just a juvenile thing that is just something for teenagers to do. It is a part of continual sort of reinterpretation of the self.
I think that kind of sums it up. Just that I think, building upon what you said, is that because it has become such a phenomenon, I think it just shows how important it is for people to really reflect on it and kind of dissect that, figure out what it is that it actually means and kind of how it's functioning in society, and then also because obviously our interest is in art, how is that impacting the art world as well. But we'd love to answer any questions.
Well, if someone says that selfies are an indication of unusual narcissism, now clearly, is this Adam?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's about something much more serious.
Yeah.
But are we seeing some kind of development that's the result of technological change where we are more obsessed with the self? Does it just seem
That we're more obsessed with the idea of self? I think that because it's so immediate, I was just having a conversation with somebody before I got here about this one, and she was like, yeah, she picked up her phone and took a picture of herself and then, went to post it. I'm like, you could just do that in under 5 seconds. She raised the point that we now have phones with front-facing cameras. It's like, that is meant for the self. The only time you need the whole purpose of that camera is to show the self. And so I think part of it is that technology has made it so much easier. You mentioned Rembrandt. It's not going to take him 5 seconds. He has to, draw it out. The technology wasn't available to do that snapshot. So I think that because of the technology that we have, there's just so much more of it. I don't know that I would say I don't know, it's hard to say if there really is that much more fascination with the self, but that we just have more evidence of it because the technology allows for that.
And one other thing, in the Tour de France, the fans alongside the race were so busy taking selfies, it interfered with the race.
Right. Right. I agree. I'm not sure we're more obsessed with self than we ever have been before, but we have avenues that are so immediate, so fast. I mean, even your most gracious Facebook post about your husband or your neighbor who helped you out and locked you, you were locked out of your car and your neighbor came to your rescue. Even the nicest Facebook post is still based on a level of narcissism because it's still a chance to show something about your life. But I'm not sure that I think that it's more prevalent than ever before. That obsession is there, ever before. But I sure think that it's much more. It's just so immediate. It's just so it's so right at your fingertips. And I do think though we live in a world where I read a great article about that we are living more in a world where we go less for the experience and more for the update. So you have an experience, and all the while you're sort of crafting your 140 characters that you're going to put on Twitter, or you're crafting kind of the perfect way to capture it in a Facebook post, something short and pithy, and that kind of thing. So I do think there is a degree in which we maybe might be sacrificing experience over that instantaneous update that you can then check back and forth to see how many people have liked it. So I do think there's some of that. But yeah, I think there's always been an interest in self, not always in image form. Maybe I was just lecturing today about Gothic manuscripts and the fact that artists were recording that right before the Renaissance, artists are recording their names in the works that they do, because their name really means something. And so there's this sense of this is who I am and this is why I'm important. So maybe it wasn't an image, maybe it was a name, but I still think we've always been obsessed with who we are.
And I think maybe that it's the little nuances from generation to generation. Like if you were to, I think you can look at time in a couple ways. We're looking at all of, I mean, you can even go back to the caves and handprints of the first signature, But I've also heard the argument that our generation is more obsessed with the self because parents are trying to give their kids like what they weren't able to have. So it's like, you are smart, you're great, you can do it, go get it. You don't have to do just this job to make a living. You can go get your education if you want. So I do think that there is kind of more of a focus on self with those differences. But is my generation that much different from Rembrandt's? I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of a steady up and down over time, and kind of like a cyclic.
Any thoughts or questions? Okay. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. We enjoyed talking about it. Thank you so much.
Well, I might encourage everyone, if you're shy about asking a question formally in this kind of setting, I know the auditorium's kind of formal, we do have refreshments in our classroom, as I mentioned earlier, so I invite you to go in there, have some food and drink, and sit around and talk with each other, or